Welcome to Search the Scriptures. Today we are once again in the book of 2 Kings, and we're going to cover two different stories today that are stories that help illustrate what it means to have a walk of faith. And we're looking at 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 1 through chapter 4 and verse number 7. So let's start out with the first story in this section. King Ahab has died. His first son assumed the throne. That son has died. That son had no children, so Ahab's second son, Joram, assumes the throne in the northern kingdom of Israel. Let's just remind ourselves of the geographical situation here in Israel now. There's been a division between the north and the south. The northern kingdom has its capital in Samaria, and that northern kingdom is referred to as Israel. The southern kingdom has its capital in Jerusalem and is referred to as Judah. So now let's pick up the story here in chapter number 3. Joram had been supplied, or Ahab had been supplied, with 100,000 sheep and the wool of 100,000 rams by the king of Moab. An extortion payment, a tax payment. You give this or we won't fight you. Well, by the time of Joram, the kingdom of Israel had obviously became weaker, and the king of Moab said, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not giving you 100,000 sheep. I'm not giving you the wool from 100,000 rams any longer. I'm done. Well, the king of Israel and his armies aren't strong enough on their own to go out into battle. He needs help. So he goes to his brothers in the southern kingdom, the kingdom of Judah. And he says, will you go out and help me in this fight? And listen to the response of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, in verse number 7. I am as you are, and my people as your people, my horses as your horses. Yes, my brother, I will go out and I will fight with you. And he asked him, how do you want to go about doing this? What path do you want to take? And the king of Israel said, well, let's go through the desert of Edom. Now, militarily, this was a good thing to do. It seemed it would help keep them from being attacked on multiple sides. And also, he could pick up the armies of the king of Edom along the way. Edom couldn't resist Israel and Judah together. They were too strong for him. So he would enlist their help in battle along the way. So you have three kings, the king of Israel, the king of Judah, and the king of Edom, and their armies going up to attack the Moabites. Well, because of needing to go this roundabout way and to get extra resources with the king of Edom, they were wandering in a land that didn't have enough water for such a vast number of people, and their armies were without water. Their horses were without water. They were in a desperate situation. And the king of Israel, Joram, proclaims this in verse number 10. What? Has the Lord called us three kings together only to hand us over to Moab? What are we going to do? We can't go into battle dehydrated and with our animals about to die. But Jehoshaphat in the 11th verse asks the question, is there no prophet of the Lord here, that we may inquire of the Lord through him? Jehoshaphat was saying here, look, let's not take another step until we inquire of the Lord, because I don't believe that God has brought us here to be defeated. And an officer of the king of Israel answers in the next sentence here, Elisha, son of Shaphat, is here. He used to pour water on the hands of Elijah. Remember, the baton was passed in the last study. So let's consult Elisha. And Jehoshaphat responds, word of the Lord is with him. So they go and they find Elisha and they ask for his help. Elisha doesn't want to help at all. He doesn't want to have anything to do with the king of Israel. But because of the tremendous respect he has for Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, he agrees to inquire of the Lord. He asks that a harpist be brought in, perhaps so that he can calm himself and relax in the midst of this pressure situation and inquire of the Lord. I know a lot of times if I go to the prayer room, I like to play a CD and just calm things and relax in God's presence. So while the harpist is playing, he is consulting the Lord, and he receives a response from the Lord. And the response is an interesting one. Now you have to remember that this these armies are completely dehydrated. Their horses are dehydrated. They are in a weakened condition, and they are in a desert land, and there is no water. And this is what the Lord says to do. Make this valley full of ditches, for this is what the Lord says. You will see neither wind nor rain, yet this valley will be filled with water, and you, your cattle, and your other animals will drink. This is an easy thing in the eyes of the Lord, and He will also hand Moab over to you. What a strange thing to do. There's no clouds like there was with Elijah at the end of the battle on Carmel. He prayed 7 times and finally saw a cloud the size of a man's hand. No cloud, no wind, no weather patterns changing, no front coming through. Just dig ditches and God will take care of it. And this is an easy thing for Him to do. So all that day, all that night, they dug ditches. When they got up the next morning, those ditches were filled with water. And when the army of Moab arrived on the scene, and they looked out, and they saw the sun rising over these ditches, it says in verse number 22, to the Moabites across the way, the water looked red, like blood. That's blood. Those kings must have fought and slaughtered each other. Now to plunder Moab. So they thought more highly of themselves than they should. They didn't have proper intelligence, and they went into battle pumped up, thinking they were going to win, and without a plan. And because they did, when they arrived, and those 3 armies were healthy and feeling fine and filled with water, they attacked Moab and pressed the battle and defeated Moab soundly. Dig ditches in the middle of a desert when you're thirsty and there's no wind announcing the arrival of a different weather pattern and a different front coming through. Yet God supplied the water, made the water look like blood, and Moab was defeated. In the very next chapter, the first 7 verses, we have a similar type of story. God calling someone to do something that does not make sense. There was a woman that had a creditor that was pressing her for her debts, and if she did not pay her debts, he was going to take her 2 sons to be his slaves. And Elisha, this same prophet, asks her in verse 2 of chapter 4, how can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house? So he starts with what she has, not something that's going to come from the outside, but starting with what she has. We have enough. So often we want somebody else to pull in the driveway with a check. And God says, what do you have? The same question Jesus asked when He got ready to feed the 5,000. What do you have? Well, only a few loaves and a few fish, but what you have is enough if you give it to God. What did that army have in the middle of the desert? Nothing, just some shovels. It was enough. What does this woman have? Nothing. I don't have anything. Your son has nothing there at all except a little oil. That's it. Just a little bit of oil. Not even any flour to go with it. When Elijah performed a similar miracle. And Elisha says to her in verse number 3, go around and ask your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you, and your sons pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it aside. Well, that's what she did. Filled every vessel that they had gathered. The money she was able to make from selling that oil was enough to pay off her debt, and was also enough for her sons to live on. What do you have today? We know what we don't have. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough stuff. We don't have enough education. We don't have enough this, enough that, and enough of the other. But right now, in the next few moments, as we close out this video, maybe you just get out a piece of paper and write down what you do have. It may not be much. As I read something this last week, don't let what you can't do keep you from doing what you can do. What do you have? Make a list of what you have. Give God praise and thanks and glory and worship Him for what you have. And then say, Lord, this is all I have. You know what I need. And you can take what I have and supply what I need. And this is no small thing in the eyes of the Lord. I hope this study's been a blessing to you today. I hope you're having a great day so far. Go and write down that list of what you have. And may God richly bless the rest of the day.